Hello and welcome to another drive-in double feature, or should I say shalom and welcome to another drive-in double feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and
Nothing
this
Jewish
is
here.
oh, okay. You're not gonna say you're not gonna
Um,
say your Hebrew name. I gotcha.
yes.
But anyway, this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get into anything, we got a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. Just a fun little podcast where we have some games, conversations. Some would argue even better than our regular content over there at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast.
Mhm.
Just for $5 a month, hear all the great stuff we're talking about as a thank you to you patrons out there. But if you doesn't affect any regular content at all. So feel free to
Mhm.
check that out. But today we're talking about our last romance movie for the month of November. And it is 1984's Over the Brooklyn Bridge, directed by Menahem Golan. He's back.
Wow, another one. I can't believe how many movies that man directed. I always
This is
thought he
our
was just a producer.
yeah, this is our third one that we've done of his.
Yeah. And you know what? If there's one thing I can say about him, he's defying genre conventions. He's just trying all this different
I,
stuff.
you got to give. I mean, to be quite honest with you, you got to give the man some credit here.
Yeah.
I mean, no, nobody. I mean, there's directors that have their familiarities. Like you got to watch a movie of theirs and be like, I know exactly who directed this movie. You don't
Hmm.
even have to tell me who did. But this guy, you tell me The Apple, Over the Top, and Over the Brooklyn Bridge were all directed by the same man. I'd be like, oh, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, exactly. They are three completely different movies. So yeah, I actually think he's a really cool person.
And he's also technically a Academy Award nominated director. So
Technically, yes. For
tech on Operation Thunderbolt, he was nominated for best at the time foreign feature, and that was for the when he directed that when he was living in Israel. But anyway, this movie is it's kind of related to Israel a little bit. It's a very Jewish movie right now, and it's because it has
Mhm.
a lot of Jewish traditions that are in here. In fact, the original title of this movie is "My Darling Shishka," and
Mhm.
basically that's like a Yiddish term for somebody that is not of the Jewish faith or whatever, like somebody
Yeah.
who is like practicing Catholicism, Christianity, what have you. So
Mhm.
it's very much I guess I guess derogatory, maybe. I'm not sure, but I don't know
Um,
what the
I don't know.
but anyway, I would say this movie is not well known at all. I mean,
I had never
I
heard of it until you brought it up to me a few years ago.
I about to say years ago I brought this up to you
Yeah.
because we've mentioned this before, or I have at least. I've watched the Canon documentary where
Yeah.
they kind of go through like the filmography of the Canon movies, and they did mention this one
Hmm.
because they did get Elliott Gould, and there's a really famous story in this movie too that happens on set, which I'm going to get
Hmm.
into when we get towards the end of the movie. But yeah, so I saw that movie in the Canon documentary, and I was just like, huh, like it could be interesting.
Hmm.
Let's because you don't think of Canon, I don't think of romance movies or anything like
Hmm.
that. I've always think when I think of Canon movies, I think really over the top action movies
Hmm.
are over the top, just very heavily stylized, low production movies. And at the time when I was looking for it, I remember when the documentary came out, you couldn't find this movie. And because when the documentary came out, I forget the year it came out, but I remember like specifically trying to find this movie, and I
Yeah.
couldn't, and I couldn't really find it. And then
I think you
uh,
asked me to find it and I couldn't find it.
I think you did find it eventually, did you not?
No, that's right. I did. I found a copy on YouTube, if I remember right, or somewhere very low quality.
Yeah. So this movie is on YouTube, but I guess thank God for streaming services nowadays because those are dime a dozen. I mean, it's just like every company has to have
Yes,
one
yeah.
now. So MGM Plus is now a thing,
Hmm.
and I guess in the time because I knew when I found this movie I was like we should probably watch this together one day, but it just kind of fell out of the back of my mind
Yeah.
at a certain point. But then I just thought about it randomly the other week, and
Hmm.
but now you can find this movie. It's pretty easily obtainable. I
Yeah.
mean, because MGM they needed content to put onto their streaming service, so MGM owns the Canon library. So why not just throw a bunch of Canon movies on there?
That's really cool because there's probably a lot of hidden movies like this one. Did you watch it on MGM? Because I have a question.
I
Um,
watched it on Amazon Prime because it was
oh,
on Prime.
okay. Yeah, okay. I watched it on Prime as well, and it's a VHS rip. It's pretty low quality. There's no DVD, Blu-ray copy of this. I was wondering if MGM had a better quality print of this movie.
I'm gonna say probably. I mean, I this is just me making an assumption, but I'm gonna say
Mhm.
not because there's not. There's really not a very good quality of this movie because it's on Tubi, it's on Amazon Prime. I mean, you could find it anywhere now. I mean,
Yes,
so
yeah.
but it's like I said, it's a very low quality. I mean, still, I mean, definitely very watchable, but it's just it's like watching a VHS
Yeah,
tape,
it's
kind
just
of.
like watching an old movie. Whenever we do this show like this, I think I've gotten a lot better with like not worrying about format quality and like just dealing with like the low quality that we
Hey,
find.
as long as I can get subtitles of some kind, I'm good. So
And did you
this
get subtitles on
one,
this one?
there was thankfully. So
Good, good.
getting into this movie right away, this movie is set in New York City, and I would argue that New York City is a character in this movie.
I mean, I would argue it too. I mean, it's dirty, it's grimy, it's gross. I don't know. I'm a fan of it. It's a view of Jewish New York City, the Jewish side of it. But yeah, no, it shows like a different style. You get to see like synagogues and stuff like that. And this movie is very Jewish. It's very strong and Jewish roots, which is actually kind of why um just I mean maybe I'm getting my opinions out a little too early. I didn't dislike this movie at all. I think it actually has a really interesting angle to it. It's a Jewish romance movie.
Yeah, I mean it's a very much I find a lot of it um it's very obviously a very personal type of movie, because I feel
Hmm.
like because the director is Jewish, the
Hmm.
Sid Caesar who's in this movie is Jewish,
Yeah, it seemed
Elliott
like
Gould is Jewish.
Elliott Gould. This definitely seems like just like I don't know his presence in the movie. I feel like this is definitely close to him. It feels like
Yeah, and
yeah.
I think a lot of it, maybe like traditions and stuff like that, maybe are lost on a lot of audiences like watching this
Mm-hmm.
movie, possibly. But for whatever reason, it's a very subdued type of movie. But I don't. It's not one where people, I guess, would be like overly amazed by it. I
No,
guess.
and that's how I feel. I didn't dislike it, but I think it's just fine. And I feel like that's probably what most. That's why it's forgotten the time. It's kind of just like it's a little mundane. It's just a very simple movie, and not a. I mean, things happen, but not a lot. And I feel like most people probably just forgot it existed. Did
I
you
like
love
this movie
it?
quite a bit. I did.
Really? Okay, yeah, yeah.
I didn't love it. I won't go that far, but I
Yeah.
did like it quite a lot, quite a
Okay,
bit.
yeah. No, I
It,
think, and we'll get into it. I think I had some issues with it, but I think I admired it more than anything. I thought it was an interesting movie.
there's some stuff in there I didn't care for, but I mean, but for the most part, I do like it. For me, I mean, it's just like I did really enjoy Elliott Gould's performance in this
Mhm.
movie. I thought he was pretty likable.
Um,
Sid Caesar, I think, is probably the
I
best
yeah,
part of this movie, though.
yes. Sid Caesar is like to me crazy good in this movie. I wasn't expecting that from him. I actually he's really funny, but he also it's a very nuanced performance at times. He treads a really good line.
Like, okay, so I mean, the whole plot of the movie is that Elliott Gould is trying to become a successful restaurateur. He's trying to own like a really expensive restaurant in the heart of Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't have the money, obviously, and so
Yeah,
he's trying to get this money. And the only people he has supporting him are his family and his girlfriend of 2 years, I think, or five or more.
I thought
two
it was
years.
four. Maybe
You're
I'm
you're
wrong.
you're probably right, but
Yeah,
his girlfriend is played by Margot Hemingway,
yeah,
who sister to Merrill Hemingway, and of course related to Ernest Hemingway.
yeah.
So, and she is fashion into the fashion world. She's a photographer, I think, and also model too. So
Yeah, kind of like real life. I mean, she wasn't a photographer, but she was a model. Yeah, and she like presents supermodels too. It seems like just fashion world kind of
it's
deal.
not very clear on what she does in the fashion world, but she
Yeah,
does something with fashion. And
and
I,
she's in love with a schlubby Elliott Gould.
yeah, I mean, it's I think like I would have liked to have known like maybe where that attraction was. I mean, I do like them as a couple. Don't
Oh
get me
yeah, I
wrong.
think I think it works. I think you can really tell she cares for him.
Yeah, they have a very deep they care for each other very emotionally. I think what I would have liked to have seen more that would have taken it to that next level is like what brought that attraction on. I mean, obviously, he's a very hardworking, good guy, but there are some
Mhm.
times where he kind of pushes her aside to kind of deal with his family instead of being like super accepting. But I mean, that's kind of like the whole point of the movie, though, is this he has to kind of
Mhm.
become his own man.
Exactly. He has to figure out his place and not let the world command him. And eh, he can't even take care of himself properly. He has diabetes, which I like as like a character trait, I guess, because I feel like I don't know how to explain it, but this movie treats it differently than I would expect. I don't know. He's taken care of. He doesn't really let it stop him from doing anything, but it just pops up every once in a while.
No, I mean, there's like one part, or like the only plot point where it really matters, I guess,
Hmm.
is like a scene where he gets really drunk and he ends up messing up with his blood sugar and everything. And
Hmm.
but that's much later. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Um.
oh, go ahead.
Do they? I do. Do you know what the Albie special was? Because at the
Uh,
diner, he
egg.
was serving up Albie specials.
It was egg cream. So
Egg creeps. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
yeah,
The time
yeah,
to
it
have
was.
an Albie special.
Yeah, I think it was egg cream. I think, but
Hmm.
yeah, he was handing those out. But yeah, he works in a diner, and at the beginning of the movie, and it's like a really like small, rinky-dink diner. But he's like he said, he's trying to get some money for to be owning this his own restaurant, and the people that he's able to get a certain amount of money from the bank, all that, and
Hmm.
but he's still missing an additional $60,000, and it's trying to get it from his uncle Benjamin, which is again, like as we said earlier, played by Sid Caesar,
Hmm.
and he he's like a very shrewd businessman. He owns like a brazier company, and
Hmm.
it's there's this little funny scene where he's like talking to these Japanese businessmen, and
Hmm.
they're like, he's like, oh well, would you like to buy 1,000 braziers? I'm like, oh yes, 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 and like, okay, why not 2,000? He's like, oh yeah, 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 and so, but it turned out there was like a mistranslation, and it was like they were actually motorcycle salesmen for some reason, and they thought that he was buying from them. So
Yeah, they were like, yeah, they were like Suzuki. They kept saying that, and then like they showed them the motorcycle article. But of course, Elliott Gould saves it. But I guess what's funny is Elliott Gould, like for most of the movies, trying to ask him for money, but Sid Caesar just won't listen to him like at all. Because the main focus of the movie is trying to get Albie there married to a Jewish girl, just to keep it in the family, even though she is a fourth cousin. But hey, that's not a big deal.
That's practically strangers, as they said. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, so the family is well aware that he is dating Elizabeth, aka Margot Hemingway.
Mhm.
That they are aware he's dating her, and they're very, very traditional Jewish family. So
Mhm.
that said, like, if you're married, you need to marry another Jewish woman. That's like, we want to keep the whole family Jewish type of
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
And he keeps trying to push him towards uh his like you said, his fourth cousin Cheryl, played by Carol Kane, who we've
Carol
talked about
Kane.
before.
Yeah, yeah. And when a stranger calls, it's a cast of returning people because Elliott Gould from Matilda,
Mm-hmm.
Burt Young, what was he in? We've definitely had him on the show before. I'm pretty sure.
We have.
Maybe not, maybe not. Well, Carol Kane, Shelley Winters, we've talked about before. So we got some returning people here.
Yeah, Burt Young's in the movie, but I mean, he's just kind of like his friend. But he's like, he's has mob connections
Oh
supposedly,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and we
And
did talk
hates
about,
his wife.
yeah, really hates his wife. And uh but anyway, they he does finally get Uncle Benjamin into a point where he could talk. And it's like, he's trying to get his attention, and he finally gets him in a one-on-one conversation. And
Mhm.
he tells him that he wants to buy this restaurant, and the only way he's going to even think about giving Albie the money is if he leaves his girlfriend that he has now and marries his cousin Cheryl.
Yes, yeah.
And there's this funny scene too, because um, when they have he takes Sid Caesar to the restaurant that he wants to buy, and he's like, "I want you to take a look, cousin,
Mhm.
Uncle Benjamin. I want to see the restaurant." And Uncle Benjamin like just like talks the guy down, like the owner of the restaurant, down to like an even lower price, which
But he
was
makes it.
completely unnecessary. But
Yeah, because it's already a good deal, but like it almost makes it feel like it seemed like it was worse because he like raises the price. Like, yeah, you know what, 400,000. Like, but that's higher than what it was before, and it's like a push and give back and forth, and he eventually does get it down for him. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean that's his one deal though. He says like, I will help you support you with this unless you date your fourth cousin. But Elliot Gould very against it for most of the movie. He
yeah,
doesn't want to.
yeah. I mean, it's Elliott Gould never really has that hindrance of he doesn't love her. He pretty openly says that he loves this girl, and that
Mm,
that he likes her a lot. But like any other uh, romance movie, he doesn't want to go that final step and ask to marry, because I mean, she's all game for marriage, but
yes, yeah.
but and he like, because he goes to a wedding, and it's a very Jewish wedding, and there's a lot of um upper class Jewish people within the family there. And he kind of makes like a weird, like a passing line, like, "Oh, well, maybe you can come to the wedding, I don't know," type of thing. But he wasn't really serious, and she actually shows up, and he's like, "Why did you come to the wedding?" Because
Hmm.
he didn't want to have to deal with them asking about her, and like, ask, why are you still with
Yeah.
this girl and not with a Jewish woman.
Well, I think like she even introduces herself to like the rabbi or something. It's like, oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth. But for whatever reason, they go down a rabbit hole and give her like a Hebrew name. They're like, oh, Elizabeth, like this and this. And then just like when they introduce the name to Elliot Gould, just says like this Hebrew name. And he's like, who?
Yeah, yeah, that was a pretty funny scene. And
Hmm.
I and but like I said, he doesn't they kind of end up having a big argument, because she showed up to the wedding, he didn't want her there. And then
Hmm.
she's just kind of like, "Is there something you want to say to me?" Like, I did, because I've been waiting a long time, like hinting, like, "I'm ready for you to ask me to marry
Hmm.
me,"
This is a
type of
common
thing.
theme in the movies we've been picking.
Right. Yeah. Why don't people just get married?
I that seems to be the answer. Just get married as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah. Um, but I mean, there's a lot more leading up to this. I mean, there's a lot more hijinks, like him trying to convince Uncle Benjamin like to keep his girlfriend, and
Mhm.
he does eventually get him to. So I mean, Elliott Gould still doesn't want to commit, so he doesn't want to take Uncle Benjamin's money. So he goes down a rabbit hole, kind of like I said with Burt Young's character, where
Yeah.
they go to like a bar and end up getting like really drunk, and
Hmm.
they go to a strip bar pretty much,
Yeah.
uh, and after that, they come back to Elliott Gould's apartment, and this is a scene I don't like, where the
It felt so
it,
out of character in the movie, right?
it felt really out of place,
Yeah.
like at the like because they have to test his blood sugar, and they
Mhm.
want to, and so the only way they can do that is Elliott Gould has to pee into a jar,
Yeah.
and
Um and he's so drunk and sick that he can't even go to pee. So he has to convince Burt Young to hold his schwitzta, maybe, I don't know, and put it in the jar for him to pee.
well, yeah, it's like, but he's not like he's so drunk he can't stand. He's standing there perfectly,
No,
so
he's
it's
standing there
like,
perfectly, and it's almost like a joke, like almost like he's like being a little gross and naughty because he's like, "Oh, come on, you got to help a friend out." He says
yeah.
it so clear.
Did you notice too that the bathroom was carpeted?
I did not notice that. That is so old school and nasty.
Yeah, that was disgusting. And I've
Yeah.
I've I've been in a house one time where the bathroom was carpeted, and it was just
Hmm.
like, I'm like, this is absolutely gross.
Yeah. Who
Like,
thought that was a good idea?
I don't know, but I noticed that in the movie. But yeah, he it's just a really dumb scene, to be honest with you. And I think
Yeah.
this part could have been cut out. I didn't really think it was that funny either,
Well,
but it just was felt really unnecessary.
there's another really odd scene with Burt Young too, though. The one where they look at the tennis player because
Oh yeah.
end up having relationship like issues, and he's like, "Oh well, no, if you really love him, hold on, let me tell you something." And there's like a blonde lady playing tennis. And he's like, "Okay, now imagine her with her breasts coming at you and holding you close and telling you I love you." And it's like he's like telling him like this sexy story, and Elliott Gould is totally committed to it. He's really in it. He gets lost in the moment thinking about it.
That's this part I was confused about as well, where I was just kind of like, because I thought it was going to be something like he was going to imagine this girl, but maybe it was going to turn into his girlfriend. Like, oh, that's who I
Mhm.
really want to be with. I don't want this girl, and
Yeah.
type of thing. But no, he was getting into the moment type of thing.
Yeah,
uh,
it was almost like a wet dream, but it ends up just being a joke. Like
yeah,
it's very one off. Nothing really happens of it.
yeah, nothing really happens. But getting in later into the movie, like I said, Sid Caesar has some really great scenes, and Margot Hemingway. I think I really wanted more of her in the movie, because I
Yeah.
don't really think we got like there. She does have some pivotal scenes, but I would have really liked to have had more scenes with her in the movie. And
Hmm.
um, there's a scene where, like I said, Elliot Gould is kind of not taking this whole thing seriously. He's like, I'm not doing an Uncle Benjamin. Like, I want to stay with this girl. And so Sid
Hmm.
Caesar goes and talks to her, and I really like this scene where
Yeah.
he's basically telling her like, hey, like, you guys come from two different worlds. You're kind of breaking up our whole family here by being with him.
Yeah.
And you know, if he really loved you, why didn't he marry you already? Like, type of
Yeah.
like, just really like pushing her buttons, and like really going towards like those insecurities that she's obviously feeling. So
Hmm.
like, and she is very impacted by this scene, and just like that, so much so that she goes and breaks up with Elliot Gould.
Yeah.
And you know and it kind of sends him into like a spiral.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And this is like the depressing part of the movie. I'm gonna be kind of honest with you. This is kind of where it fell a little bit apart for me. I feel like it hits a point where not a lot happens, like compared to the rest of the movie. I think it starts to gain a slower pace than I would have liked.
There's some part. I mean, there are some scenes where he's just aimlessly walking around
Yeah.
New York City, which I think that kind of goes on a little too long.
Hmm.
One scene I did like though was he becomes so desperate for money that he ends up going to talk to the mob, and
Yeah.
it's he finds out all these strings are attached, and just like if you don't pay, something bad might happen. But just
Hmm.
so you know, this restaurant, it's now our restaurant too. But he ends up being like, you know what? Let me rethink
Yeah.
this.
And I'm so glad they didn't go down that path. I was like, oh man, is this going to become like, oh, I got to get out of the mob kind of deal movie? No, even Burt Young's like, how about we get out of there? He's going to think about this for tonight before we move
Yeah.
on.
No, I agree. I like that scene too.
Hmm.
In the meantime, though, he kind of gives in to the pressure, and he does take his cousin Cheryl out on a date, and they go to an opera. And
Hmm.
opera is real snooze fest.
Yeah, he's snoring in the opera. Oh well, we forgot the Carol Kane there. They have like it. Wait, no, that's right after that where she tries to
Yeah,
sleep with him and she's
that's
pretending to be
after.
a cat.
Yeah, that again, not a very good scene in my opinion.
It's not really funny.
It's not very funny, and I don't really understand it that well. And I'm
Hmm.
just because he's given into this peer pressure, and they go on the date, and then she's like, "Oh, you want to come upstairs for a nightcap type of thing?" And
Yeah.
they they go upstairs. Uh, they start talking, and then she starts like acting like a cat, and she starts like lifting up his shirt and kissing his belly, and then
And he keeps trying to like push her away and she's like, "Don't touch me."
well, not even that, like he's just trying to like touch her, like touch her face, like
Yeah.
like, oh, I love you, that type of thing, and she's like,
Uh-huh.
don't touch me, and then so I don't get, it's like he's like, I don't like, they're trying to paint like he was in the wrong for touching her, but she's like all over him, and so it was very weird.
Yeah. And I think what's
And
his reasoning for not sleeping with her? It's kind of I'm a boring lay.
no, he says, I'm not. He's like, I'm a not complicated man. I'm a boring humper or
Yeah, a
something like
boring
that.
number. That's right.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, but they end up like they're about to sleep together, and then he's like, this is too weird. I'm out of here, type of thing. And
mm-mm.
he does make one last ditch effort, and he calls up, Elizabeth, finds out it's not going to work, and again another really weird scene where he's in a phone booth, and there's a
Oh yeah,
homeless
the whole
man like
peeing
knock.
on.
Well, he's wanting a
Yeah.
cigarette.
Uh-huh.
He's like, oh, like he's not saying it. He's just making like the cigarette motions with his
Uh-huh.
fingers, and he's like, I'm on the phone, type of thing. And the homeless guy, just starts peeing on the phone booth, and then he's like, cigarette still, like
Hmm.
he's like, yeah, sure, cigarette, take it,
Yeah,
like.
I know. Yeah, but I like how it's done. Gives the homeless man the cigarette. The homeless man puts it in Elliott Gould's mouth. He takes out his own lighter, lights it in Elliott Gould's mouth. Really odd. But I actually kind of thought that scene was funny. It's
I
just
I
weird.
like I that was of the out of place scenes, that was the one I liked the best.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
um so that kind of that stuff happens, but kind of like the real climax of the movie, which it's almost like they missed a scene of this movie,
Hmm.
because Elliot Gould, like, so when Elliot Gould goes out on the date with Carol Kane, it ends really badly. They're like, I don't. She's like, I don't want to see you again. I don't like you, type of thing, because
Hmm.
she's basically like, we're not compatible sexually, type of
Hmm.
thing. And but then they come together and have, he's able to finally get the restaurant, able to put a down payment, so he goes out to celebrate with his family, and they're like, oh, and we're also here to celebrate the engagement of Albie and Cheryl. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like,
Yeah. And
I was
moves pie.
well, I mean, like, it ended on such a bad note, and it's like they're engaged now. I'm like, it's like almost like a
Mhm.
scene was missing.
And I wouldn't be
But
surprised if there was.
I mean, there might have been, who knows? But
Hmm.
to me, this is the scene where I really like this scene the most, because it's the climax of the movie, because kind of pressure is kind of bubbling over uh,
Hmm.
with Albie Elliott Gould, because he's been dealing so much with family, and he's kind of at the point where he's like, I'm just going to deal with this because I'm going to be happy. But he comes to find out, like, even though Sid Caesar was willing to give him this money,
Hmm.
still, he still finds out there's still going to be all these strings attached to it. Like, because he starts trying to leave early, like, I have a headache, I want to get out of here, type
Hmm.
of thing. And he's like, no, sit down. Don't you remember I gave you the money? So it's just like, I think he kind of realizes this is never going to end. Like, I'm never going
Yes,
to hear
yeah.
the end of it. And he's always going to try to boss me around. And Elliot Gould kind of explodes in this movie. He starts
Yeah.
talking bad about all the other family members.
And
He's
this scene is honestly really good. This is where things really pick up because he's yelling at each family member, and it's got like a really nice comedy edge because there's I don't know what her relation is to everybody, but she just seems to always have something to say about everything he's yelling about.
yeah. Well, I think it's one of the. I think it's his like cousin. Like, I think it's like his cousin's wife or something like that. I
Something,
don't know,
yeah.
but yeah, she's just like, oh, like this is too much. She's like, oh, well, I can't miss a word of this. I'm kind of enjoying it now, and but I mean, the real meat and potatoes of it is just the connection between Sid Caesar and Elliot Gould,
Hmm.
because um, they kind of boils over to a point. Like I said, they're kind of yelling at each other, and then it gets physical for a moment,
Hmm.
and because Elliot Gould's like, I'm not taking the money here. You can have it. Like,
Hmm.
forget it. Forget this whole thing happened. And then Uncle Benjamin smacks him, and then he smacks him back because he's like, well, I finally have to stand up for myself. And I was actually pretty moved for this
Really?
scene. Like I really like this scene because Sid Caesar kind of breaks down, and he's just, what you realize is that, at least I was kind of interpreting it anyway.
Hmm.
It's just like, the real reason was just like, Sid Caesar really missed his brother, because
Yeah.
Elliot Gould's dad was, for the movie, was Sid Caesar's brother, and
Hmm.
Sid Caesar was trying to fill the void of being Elliot Gould's father, and he's just like, your father used to fight me like that too, and
Yeah, that's exactly what he says. Yeah.
so it was really more of like him not coping with his own grief, and like dealing with this whole type of thing, and it's just
Hmm.
like, it was just a moment that I really enjoyed, and I was just like, oh, I was like, this is like a really good scene, like
Yeah.
not one that I was not expecting in this movie.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a real scene from like a real drama. It's like really solid, really good. And Sid Caesar was really, I think he was really bringing it all in this one. And
Yeah, I'd have to.
Shelley Winters is just sitting in the back.
She doesn't really do a whole lot in the movie, does
No,
she? But
no, but I mean, it's fine. She serves her purpose.
she's fine in it. I mean, she's
Yeah.
not bad, or but she just doesn't have anything to really work with. But
Hmm.
he's but he does. I do like, though, he has a little moment with his mom where he's just like,
Hmm.
because like, you're not marrying cousin Cheryl, so then who? And he's like, I think you already know. She's like, yes, I know who. And
Yeah.
and
Well, she does have that good scene where she does talk to her, like in the diner, and all the other
true,
Jewish people are making fun of her. And then she was like seriously trying to sit down and have a real conversation with her.
right? And she was trying to get to know her on some sort of level, but but they had already been broken up at that point. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but they do like the classic Hollywood thing where, at after that conversation is over, Uncle Benjamin finally, forgives him, and is like, take the money, please. Like, don't,
Hmm.
do whatever you need to do, type of thing, to be
Yeah.
happy. And, so Elliot Gould rushes over to Margot Hemingway's apartment. And
Hmm.
on some level, it's a little creepy, because imagine, like, if your ex burst into the door while you're taking a shower, like, that would be like, you'd freak out probably.
Yeah. And
But
she's like fully naked. I mean, she covers herself up, but she's in the middle of showering.
again, I really like the final scene of this
Hmm.
movie where he climbs into the shower with her with all his clothes on, and he's just kind of
Mhm.
like if you'll take me, I want to spend every minute with you. And he declares his love for her. And
Yes, yeah, it's sweet.
she's I like that scene. I thought it was a nice ending. So, and that's where the movie ends, pretty much right there. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, uh,
It didn't
but
need to go any further. It feels like a nice wrap up.
yeah, it was a nice wrap up. We know what's going to happen in the future. But so what I kind of alluded to earlier in the episode was uh, there is a very famous scene, a very famous story coming from this scene, because apparently, like, production got shut down for a while for this movie
Really.
because, yeah, because Elliott Gould and Menahem Golan, the director, like got into like this huge argument. And from what I've heard about Menahem Golan, like from the other documentary and the thing like that, he's not a very good director. It's just
Mhm.
very like, just do this type of thing. Like,
Yeah.
and because this is the direction like he was giving. Like, there was a crew member that they interviewed, and it's like, here, this is what Menachem did. Like, when he was like, it's like, here, come over here to Menachem. Like, I love you, like, type of thing, where it was just trying to describe like how he
Hmm.
wanted Elliott Gould to say it. And Elliott Gould was, I guess, wanting to be a lot more subdued or understated, whatever. And anyway, they kept arguing back and forth. um, Elliott Gould called him a cocksucker,
Oh my
and
God.
and so Menachem got really pissed and shut down the whole production for like a
Hmm.
couple of days. And they interviewed Elliott Gould about this because he verified that happened.
Hmm.
He's like he had to come in and apologize. He's like, I'm sorry, Menachem, you're not a cocksucker. Like,
I'm sure he appreciated that.
so that was just like a little funny story. But again, I want to say that it's not like an all-time romance movie for me, but I was very surprised by this movie. I was
Mm.
kind of expecting like a very boring type of movie, or just like not a whole lot there. But I will say this. I mean, I think the good thing about it is the casting in this movie. I mean, it's just,
Hmm.
that's kind of what saves it, I think, for me. Like, that takes it to like that level above from like a mid-tier movie, because like I said, Sid Caesar, Elliott Gould, Margot Hemingway, like the three main leads, all deliver in my opinion.
Hmm.
um and like I said, I if there could have been a little more of like the chemistry between like the two romantic leads, and possibly some of the less sillier scenes in the movie, I think I would have liked it even more. But as it is, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting movie. I do think it gets a little slow towards the end, but I do think it's an admirable movie. I think that's the best way to put it. I like that it actually just does something a little different. I've really seen a movie quite like this, a nice little romance, but it has a really nice Jewish backdrop. And like you said, the casting's really good. And I think the cast here does a really great job. Would I recommend it? No, probably not. But it's kind of like a passing interest. If this sounded interesting to you, I mean, why not give it a shot?
And I recommend it.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to ask you though, before we end on this. So, like I said, that this director is very infamous. We've done three of his movies. Would you say this is the best one that we've done, that we've covered?
So it's Over the Top, this, and what was the other
The
movie?
the
Uh,
Apple.
The Apple. Um, I guess like in terms of like realistic quality, yes, but I think I'd rather watch Over the Top.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that being more entertaining, but
Yes, yeah.
in terms of actual movie quality, I'd say this
Yes,
one's better.
this is the better
Eh,
movie quality movie.
Entertainment value is a whole different story, but
Yes, yeah.
yeah.
This is like a
So
movie like this feels like a lesser movie of like a great director, maybe like maybe not a great director, but a really good director with a great filmography. This would be part of like their lesser catalog.
yeah, like maybe a director that was really big at one point, and then they just started phoning it in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That might be where it stands. So I mean, and for him, I think that's pretty good. That's a pretty good place to be.
I definitely think so far of the ones I think in terms of quality, this is the best ones of the ones I've seen. So,
Yeah.
but that is going to do it for romance month. Nathan, what a whirlwind romance we got into this month.
Yeah.
First, let's just go back. We fell in love with a mannequin. We
Mm-hmm.
fell in love in outer space. We prevented the assassination of the Pope for some reason.
Yep. Yeah.
Fell in love at the Thanksgiving Day parade, and now Mazel Tov. We found our forever
Yeah.
girl.
Shabbat
So,
shalom. That's what I have to say.
oh, hello.
Is that what? Yeah, Shabbat shalom. Hello. Obviously, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, Nathan, if there's a better romance out there, I don't want to hear about it. This is as good as it gets in my book.
You just mentioned a better romance right there.
What?
As good as it gets.
Never heard of it. Must.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, you're
Con-
telling me you've never heard of a Helen Hunt movie? All right, buddy.
yeah. I can't ignore that one. But
um, but
but
okay.
but no, I was trying to be a little quirky this month. I did with my own little
I
theme. So
I think it
I
was
was
a fun month. It was a nice change of pace. These were a
I
bunch of movies we would have never talked about.
I'll start going in with more in line of what we normally pick, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to do something different where it wasn't a horror movie since we did a whole month of horror. So
Yeah.
I thought that would be kind of funny. But
Mhm.
we're gonna get in to our regularly scheduled program with what, Nathan?
All right. So for next week's double feature on Tuesday, we got Never Say Never Again. It's Bonzilla again. But Ryan, what are we going to be covering on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, what's everyone's least favorite topping on a pizza?
Pepperoni.
No, Nathan.
Oh, not
It's
pepperoni?
it's obviously mushrooms.
Okay. Not true. Come on.
But we are going to be talking about a Japanese monster horror movie from 1963, also directed by Ishiro Honda, called Matango. And that is streaming on Tubi for free right now.
Yes, and Never Say Never Again is on Max.
Well, perfect, terrific, cannot wait. But if you have any thoughts, opinions about today's podcast, please email us over at driveanddoubleFeaturePodcast@gmail.com. Come on, guys. The cobwebs are all over our inbox. We need an email over here.
Yeah, as soon as we covered Benji, the emails stopped coming in.
No, all the Benji heads, you need to wake up. But
And don't pick another Benji movie, please.
but and don't forget to follow us on X at DIDF Pod. And once again, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/driving-double-feature-podcast. But until next time, Mazel Tov.
I'm sorry, I'm a shitsta, I guess. I don't know. Goodbye. What's
You're
like
true mensch.
Yes, yeah. Peace out.